This program has been paid for by the sponsor and does not reflect the views of PCN.
Good afternoon, and welcome to PHRC Speaks, Fair Housing Forward. I'm your host, Brittany Mellinger, and I serve as the Fair Housing Training and Outreach Coordinator at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. In this show, we explore all things housing with the experts, advocates, and community leaders working to expand access to housing. Today, we'll be talking about PHRC's outreach efforts and how we can all work together for welcoming and inclusive communities for all individuals. It's my pleasure to welcome to the show my colleague, Sheryl Meck. Sheryl serves as the Director of Civil Rights Outreach within the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Prior to this role, Meck served a combined 10 years in the adult probation and parole field. She began her career supervising high-risk cases as a state agent for Maryland. She then transferred to Lancaster County Adult Probation and Parole, where she supervised and worked closely with domestic violence offenders for 5 years, before being promoted to supervisor of the Behavioral Health Neurodevelopmental Disorders Unit as the first Filipina American woman in a management position within the history of the Lancaster County Adult Probation. Meck graduated from Basic 94th Firearms Training Academy in 2018 and served in a secondary position on the Special Intervention Unit for the Lancaster County Adult Probation. She also contributed as a CPR instructor for the agency. Meck is trained in motivation interviewing, trauma-informed, and crisis intervention. Meck is a founder and co-chair of Diversity, Respect, Inclusivity, Values, Equity, Drive Committee for the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas. This committee is dedicated to community outreach, internal training, and continues efforts towards fostering a positive relationship between entities of the court system and the people within the community. Meck is a graduate of California University of Pennsylvania, where she earned her Bachelor's of Liberal Arts degree in criminal justice with a concentration in forensic science in 2010. Meck has earned a Master's of Science degree in public safety with concentration in public administration from Capella University in 2010. She continued on, earning 28 credits towards her doctorate of public administration. Welcome, Director Meck, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me and for the introduction. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we've heard a lot about your background and your experience, but we all have a story on how we got to our current work. I'd love to start our conversation today by inviting you to share a little bit about your journey to your current vocation.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I spent 10 years working in adult probation and parole. And it was in 2020 that sparked my true passion in this fight for social justice, civil and human rights. And that was after the unfortunate witness where the world saw the murder of George Floyd. And I started to speak up, particularly pertaining to, in probation and parole, we have the choice to make whether or not we're going to arrest someone. And I felt very compelled to speak up on the necessary trainings we should be receiving on humanity across the board. That speaking up prompted me to become one of the co-founders of the Drive Committee. And I'm proud to say that today it now is not just within adult probation and parole, but it's across the entire Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas. So every department within has functions of the Drive Committee where we focus on training, outreach. We look at how we interact with each other and how we treat the community that we serve. And so from there, that is really what sparked my passion in this work. And I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be in this position today.
It's incredible, and we're thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you.
So you lead the newest division within the PHRC, our Civil Rights Outreach Division. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you and your team do?
Absolutely. So it's an honor to be on such a historical journey as a newly created division with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. The division is comprised of myself as the director and 4 civil rights outreach coordinators, 3 out of the Harrisburg office and 1 out of the Philadelphia office. And we are to be seen as Pennsylvania's peacemakers. We are your immediate response team to anytime there's an incident that civil tension is rising in the community. We want to come out and have a presence. We want to share space that's safe for community members to share their concerns. We want to listen and then figure out ways that we can lead and provide resources. And of course, inform the community of Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission as the state's leading enforcement civil rights agency, that there is law that they are protected under. And that is our job and our purpose.
So you're Pennsylvania's peacemakers. Could you expand a little bit about what that would look like and what that does look like when you go out into the community?
Sure. So we actually call them in-house community response plans. And how that starts is we'll receive a call from someone in the community raising concerns about a particular event. So it could be school boards considering policies that might have disparate treatment, or other education equity issues, or maybe sexual harassment in the workplace. Something triggers us to create a community response plan. And as I mentioned, we want to make sure that we are rapid in our response to the best of our ability. And so we have standardized PowerPoints that relay information on who the PHRC is, what the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act is about, who the Civil Rights Division members are of the PHRC, and how to file a complaint. And then we'll go out and present on that. But we also include a piece of what that initial call was about. So for example, in Philadelphia, we did a community response plan that talked about LGBTQ violence statistics and how much it goes underreported. And we shed light on different concerns about that, and then educate on the additional LGBTQ protections that the PHRA allows into the law. And so I, am proud to say that during the first year of the existence of the Civil Rights Division, we were able to complete 8 different community response plans throughout the Commonwealth. And now that we have more grounding and an easier flow on how we work through this, my goal for 2025 is to be able to access, enter into multiple other counties to hold space for that. One great thing that comes out of these community response plans is that we learn a lot of people don't know about the PHRC itself, or exactly what protected classes are, or not recognizing that there's LGBTQ protections or Crown protections that individuals have. And so getting out into the space, meeting the people where they live, it opens a great door for connections and outreach efforts through that way. And then oftentimes people call us back afterwards wanting additional trainings or wanting to know how to move forward with how to file a complaint with the PHRC. And so it's extremely beneficial for us to continue to get out to all 67 counties across the state.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
I know some of the LGBTQ protections and the Crown protections are actually some of the newer protections that we've established. Could you talk a little bit to our viewers who might not be familiar with what those are? Could you give us just a really quick overview?
Absolutely. So we adopted these into our regulations back in August of 2023. And so it's an additional interpretation of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, in that with respect to LGBTQ protections, anybody is allowed to express their gender the way that he, she, or they choose to. One person cannot, for example, be fired from a job because that they decided to transition. And so those protections are an incredible source of information to be knowledgeable of for all Pennsylvanians. In addition to the Crown Act is, refers to our hair. And so, we've all heard the stories of possibly, a student that may have had to remove his dreads in order to participate in a sport, or have their hair only a certain length in order to, be considered acceptable in school. And the Crown Act protects individuals that need protected hairstyles. And so you can no longer be discriminated against for how you wear your hair if you're wearing a protective hairstyle or head wrap. And so again, that's just another piece that, it's relatively new as of 2023, and it's our responsibility to get out in the community and spread the word.
Yeah, and you have a big job to do. I know Pennsylvania has the unfortunate reputation of having one of the highest numbers of hate groups in the nation. Can you talk about why this is, what factors are at play?
Sure. So I think it's important to start off with some data. And in 2023, Southern Poverty Law Center was able to identify 78 different hate or anti-government groups within the state of Pennsylvania. Also, according to that year's data, Pennsylvania ranked number 10 in the country. And I think when we first just give space to hold on to those numbers, that should be alarming for every resident within the state of Pennsylvania. As far as why these hate groups exist, I think the root of that is fear, ignorance, the inability to want to hear another person's story, and just, recognizing that it's okay to be in spaces with people of different backgrounds, different faiths, and that if we can learn to get along with each other, my hope is that down the road, those numbers will certainly go down.
Yeah, absolutely. So you shared some great data with us. Could you now share some examples of some of the issues that communities have brought to your team and how you've worked to address them?
Absolutely. So we have heard a lot in the school space as far as bullying and harassment. A lot of times, demographics are changing. So if a population is becoming more predominantly Spanish speaking, the school has the responsibility to be able to equitably provide those needs for those students so that they can learn and no child is left behind. That's one example in the school setting, but we are hearing, different concerns across the board. So in the space of housing, the fact that income needs to be 2 to 3 times higher than what the rent is, that's hard for the marketplace. And when you relate it to transportation, if it's in a rural area, there might not be a bus system that goes past a certain hour. And so those people that could work second and third shift, they might not have a way to get to work. And so the various issues that we are hearing stem all across the complexities of humanity, but I've been thankful that we've been able to get out and advocate and meet the people where they're at and direct them back to the PHRC so that they are aware of their protections.
So can you talk a little bit about the impact that hate crimes and bias incidents have on community members?
Absolutely. So hate crimes and hate bias definitely has a negative impact on the community as a whole. So let's take, for example, in a county where there may be a change in the demographics and a different immigration population is starting to move in. If the community that was already there is having some type of fear or misunderstanding about the new group that's coming in, they may have rhetoric that's not true, rhetoric that could be very hurtful. And so there's impact on both sides. The people that have been living there may think that, these people are coming in to take my jobs, so on and so forth. Well, that's not the case for the new population that's moving in. They want a safe place to live. And so when you have bias in this sense, it definitely affects the psychological safety for everyone involved. And I think it's important to take a step back, be in a position where you're willing to get to know one another, be in a position where you're open to reading, knowing the truth, fact-finding, and recognizing that hate rhetoric has no place for anyone in the state of Pennsylvania.
So we were talking a little bit about the importance of home and what that means to an individual, to a family. Can you talk a little bit about how these incidents impact the housing stability of groups who may be impacted by hate crimes and bias incidents?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely want to touch base on the fact that tenants, they have the right to not be exposed to harassment, right? And harassment can come in different forms. It could be from the property owners, the maintenance staff, different vendors that communities are using to come in and address different things. And so with that, housing providers also have the responsibility to take prompt action, address the harassment that's going on, and make the necessary changes. I think also for the individual that is in those situations receiving harassment, as I mentioned, it affects your psychological safety. And so a lot of what the Civil Rights Division's role and responsibility is to empower through education and outreach, making sure that both housing providers and residents are aware of their rights and protections.
Yeah, absolutely. So say one of our viewers has experienced a hate crime or a bias incident, or they know someone in their community that has, what are the steps that they should take to address an incident, to get it investigated?
So, great question. First and foremost, you have to speak up. Depending on what occurred, contact your local police department. If there was hate speech involved, contact the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. That is covered under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Reach out to myself. I'm happy to provide my contact information. There are steps, but first and foremost is to report. When we shed light into areas of darkness, that's the only way that it can be revealed what's really happening. And then from there, move forward on what will it take to stop it, change, and improve from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can individuals, organizations, faith communities, local leaders, how can all of these groups respond to incidents when they become aware of them? How can we all make sure that folks feel welcome in their homes and their communities?
So I love this question because the answer is multifaceted in that it takes everyone to step in. And so what I mean by that was, are you creating in your neighborhood a safe space for your neighbors? Are you interacting well with one another? As far as when something happens, again, reach out to local leaders, reach out to your state agency. That's what we're here for. And I am so appreciative of the work of advisory councils and PHRC's Social Justice Ambassador Program. They serve as an extension of the PHRC. They are our eyes and ears in the community. And that is a huge way of how we find out what's going on. And so I would just encourage continued collaboration amongst stakeholders, amongst local leaders, state and federal. This is a crisis of human brokenness, and the only way we're going to fix it is if we figure out how to come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking specifically at the housing setting, what role can our housing providers play in ensuring that our communities are free from harassment and intimidation, that homes are safe places for people to be?
Twofold. I think that housing providers should make sure that they receive the adequate training of the law, and that's a great thing about PHRC. All of our trainings are free at no cost and can be tailored specifically to what exactly they are looking for. So I think accountability and knowledge of the law for housing providers. And then internally, if it's a property manager for a community, feel free to put out some type of qualitative data request asking, the people in the community, how do you feel? What are some areas of improvement? What are some strengths that you are enjoying living in this community? Data is everything, both qualitative and quantitative, and that's what's going to help push the needle forward.
Could you talk a little bit about some challenges that you've found as you've engaged with community members? I'm sure you've come up with a diversity of opinions and perspectives as you've gone about your work.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say, there's language barriers, but I'd want to touch on the fact that we have telephonic interpretation. And so speaking a different language should not prevent anybody from wanting to call in. Please do so. I also would like to encourage those that maybe fear retaliation, especially if there's some issues going on with their employment. That is a fearful and legitimate concern because of needing your job, needing your paycheck. But with that, it's important to note that retaliation is also protected under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. And therefore, if someone chooses to move forward with a complaint, the respondent must be made well aware that retaliation would fall under that complaint as well as if it were to occur.
So I know another tool that your team uses is the No Hate in Our State town halls. Can you share a little bit about what those events are and what the impact that they have are in communities afterwards?
Absolutely. So No Hate in Our State town halls are on a bigger scale than a community response plan that I previously talked about. I love these type of events because not only is it PHRC co-led, it's led with members of the community. And so myself and our executive director, Chad Dion Lassiter, will serve as panelists on a panel. And then we look for 2 to 3 community leaders from various backgrounds. Could be retired law enforcement, someone from the education field, someone from the medical field. And so we bring together this panel where we are asked questions about human brokenness or how to handle various issues relevant to the community. And at the end of that, we hold space for the community members, the attendees themselves, to share. And usually by the time the panelists are done, you can see a shift in the reality of the whole purpose of these town halls is to bridge a divide in understanding. It is to come together and be united against any form of hate. And ultimately, what I have found is that is what the majority of Pennsylvanians want. And so oftentimes you have to pull back the layers of ignorance and fear and trauma to get to this space where, okay, let's share on our experience, let's share on where we are at in the current moment, and then let's figure out ways to move forward. And so I am hopeful and looking forward to more No Hate in Our State town halls in 2025.
Yeah, that's incredible that you're able to create that space along with the local partners to allow people to share honestly and bridge those differences. Often I feel like it's really challenging to find those spaces these days to be able to engage in that way. So that's really amazing. I know your team is also focused on just getting out into the community in so many different spaces. Can you talk a little bit about some of the outreach that you've been doing where folks might have seen your team recently or where you might be going forward?
Yes, so as I mentioned, we worked hand in hand with advisory councils. If there's a local event happening, we're happy to have a table there where we can have PHRC material, swag, just have a presence and be available to talk. We've been at children's carnivals. We were just recently at the farm show all week. I know coming up for MLK In-Service Day, we'll be at Girard College in the Philadelphia area. And so I would strongly, advise anyone that's interested in coming to meet the Civil Rights Division for the PHRC, check out our website, check out our upcoming events. It is posted on the website.
So we know this is really challenging work. This is not easy, I'm sure, to engage in these conversations day in and day out, helping communities come together and find spaces of welcome. Can you share what keeps you going on the really hard days?
Great question. My faith and my children. And so I will say that I am well aware of the blessings and abilities that I have in life today are a fruit of the advocacy and hard work of those that were on the social justice pursuit before me. And while it is my turn currently to carry the social justice baton, I want to make sure that when it's my time to hand it off, that I've done everything that I could while I had it.
Yeah, absolutely. Director Meck, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today and to talk about the work that you and your team are doing. It's incredibly important work, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I would also like to thank our viewers for spending their afternoon learning with us. If you believe that you've experienced housing discrimination or would like to learn more about housing protections in Pennsylvania, give us a call at PHRC's Fair Housing Line, which is 855-866-5718. You can also find us at our website, which is on the screen. You can keep up with our work on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And remember, our communities are stronger when everyone has a place to call home. We'll see you next time.
This program has been paid for by the sponsor and does not reflect the views of PCN.